that we reside on the homeland of the Lenape people, past and present, and we respect and honor them as our original caretakers of this land. And now we ask that you please draw your attention to the following regulations. Smoking or vaping is not permitted in the auditorium, lobby, or restrooms. Please turn off all cell phones and any other electronic devices. The use of cameras or recording devices of any kind are strictly prohibited without special permission from the university. Due to fire regulations, audience members are not permitted to sit or stand in the aisles. In the event of an emergency, please proceed calmly towards the nearest fire exit. Thank you for your attention.
Lady Liberty, isn't she something? Torch reaching to the heavens, an enduring invitation to fulfill your dreams. What's our dream? It's a big one, because that's just what we do. We dream of the honor of welcoming the world's greatest game to the world's biggest stage. Soccer is in our souls, our cities, our stadiums, our backyards, and our schoolyards. We are a tapestry of vibrant, multicultural threads. And this beautiful game is everything we stand tall for. We are New York. We are New Jersey. And we are one. Are we ready to host the 2026 FIFA World Cup? We were born ready. Come one, come all. Welcome, world.
Welcome, world.
Welcome, world.
Welcome, world.
Swagata, world. Welcome, world.
So bring us your proud, your superstars, your diehards, your big dreamers, your future heroes, longing to raise that cup and shine as bright as the Empire State.
Benvenuto, world.
Welcome, world.
Welcome, world.
Welcome, world.
To make it even more special, it'll all take place on our nation's 250th birthday. Now that will be a celebration for the ages, and the whole world is invited.
Welcome, world.
Bienvenido, world.
Welcome, world.
Benvindo, world.
This is the game, and New York and New Jersey is the place. Bring it here and watch the World Cup runneth over.
Welcome, world.
Lady Liberty will meet you in her harbor.
Welcome, world.
Welcome, world.
Aquaba, world.
And our people will greet you with outstretched arms.
Welcome, world.
Willkommen, world. Welcome, world.
Welcome, world.
It is my pleasure now to introduce you to Dr. Richard Heldobler, the 8th President of William Paterson University.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to William Paterson University. With just 2 years until our region welcomes global soccer fans for the 2026 FIFA World Cup, the world's biggest sporting competition, we are so pleased to host today's presentation and discussion of diversity and anti-discrimination in sports. I want to extend a special welcome and thanks to our presenters and panelists, Gerd Debowski of FIFA, Ilsa Padilla of the New York Red Bulls, Raven Santana of the New Jersey Business Beat and NJ Spotlight News, Sahara Hassoun of New Jersey and New York Gotham FC, Jennifer O'Sullivan of NYCFC, Lauren LaRosso and Brianna Keys of the NYNJ World Cup 2026 Host Committee, and of course, our moderator, Tom Bergeron of ROI-NJ. I also want to take some time to thank our state and local officials who are with us here today, including Councilwoman at Large Maritza Davila of Paterson and Candace Alfonso, the Chief Diversity Officer and Director of the Office of Diversity Inclusion for the state of New Jersey. And to any other state or local officials who I may have missed, please know that your presence and support here today is deeply appreciated. Thank you for joining us and for your continued dedication to our community. And of course, I would like to acknowledge the hard work of our event organizers from the New Jersey Pride Chamber of Commerce, Executive Director and proud William Paterson alum, Gus Panoranda, and Board Chair Noah O'Hare. Thank you for all your work. You know, we're especially happy to be able to host this event because we are big soccer fans. You can see I got the early swag on today. And more importantly, as a university community, we are strong advocates for diversity. This includes supporting the kind of intentional and determined anti-discrimination efforts that are taking place here today, which seeks to ensure that everyone has a chance to participate, whether in the classroom, on the field, or in the stands. Of course, like the rest of the fans in this soccer-mad region, we are also very excited that the first ever World Cup to be co-hosted by 3 countries will play its final at MetLife Stadium, less than 15 miles down the road from where we gather today. Founded in 1855 as a training college for teachers who were needed to educate the region's booming and diverse immigrant population, William Paterson has grown into a university educating some 10,000 students in 4 colleges here on our Wayne, New Jersey campus and WP Online, our fully online platform for graduate, certificate, and adult degree completion programs. As a designated minority and Hispanic serving institution with many first-generation college students, we are now educating a new generation of immigrants and the children of immigrants from all over the world. Among our many academic distinctions, William Paterson, through its new School of Nursing, is the largest producer of nurses in northern New Jersey and the largest on any single campus in the state. We are also an increasingly international university. William Paterson currently enrolls students from 64 countries from around the globe. So just as soccer was brought to the U.S. by earlier populations of immigrants and changed along with the shifts in those populations, so too has William Paterson grown and evolved to serve the students who are changing the social fabric of New Jersey and our nation. Soccer certainly has a strong presence in our region, rooted in a rich history. In addition to the Red Bulls, Gotham FC, and other clubs of today, it also includes Paterson FC, which a century ago won the national championship. Here at William Paterson, we field NCAA Division III men's and women's teams, known as the William Paterson Pioneers. Both have enjoyed success. Our women's team earned the first of 3 NCAA tournament bids and reached the Sweet 16 in 1997, just 3 years after its launch. And our men's team has played in 2 NCAA tournaments. We are proud of all of our soccer players who are truly student athletes in the truest sense of the term. Like all Pioneer athletic programs, they compete in an environment in which diversity and inclusion, civility and respect for all players, opponents, coaches, and fans is fundamental to the experience and to our mission. We applaud FIFA for prioritizing anti-discrimination in its global mission with an added emphasis in the lead up to the 2026 World Cup. As the world's game, football truly is for everyone, and William Paterson is proud to support those efforts. So we look forward to welcoming the world to New Jersey. Thank you, and go Pioneers.
It is my distinct pleasure to welcome to the stage Raven Santana. Raven is a sub-anchor for New Jersey Spotlight News on NJPBS, a correspondent and host of the New Jersey Business Beat, and she is also a member of WNET's DEI Council. Please join me in welcoming Raven Santana.
Thank you so much. As you heard, I am so excited and proud to be here as a Jersey girl, born and raised, a former varsity high school soccer player, and the host of a business show in New Jersey. This is so important to me, and I know the great impact it will have on our business community. My goal here is to discuss why DEI doesn't just affect fans, the game, players, but businesses in our community as well. As the first woman of color to fill in at the anchor desk, the first woman of color at NJ Spotlight News to host a business show, I know firsthand the great impact DEI has on the business community. On the show, I was able to highlight and focus on stories and influencers in the business community, large and small, from Main Street to Wall Street, and that includes also communities that constantly are overlooked or underrepresented. That includes women-owned businesses, minority-owned businesses, and the LGBTQIA+ community. And as you know, with Gus inviting me here, this is not just an honor, but this is also important to discuss. As you know, New Jersey became the first state in the nation to recognize LGBTQ+ owned businesses, creating a greater equity for diverse suppliers in the Garden State's procurement stream. And as you know, Gus leads the only LGBTQ+ chamber in the state of New Jersey. That's 21 counties, 9 million people, and 541 municipalities. That's a lot of ground to cover, and he's doing it. And he's making sure and creating more opportunities as another example of inclusion and equity within the state. You know, here in New Jersey, raising awareness about anti-discrimination isn't just limited to the game, like I said, and it isn't just something that should matter. It really should be a requirement. New Jersey at MetLife Stadium have hosted countless major events, from Super Bowls to WrestleManias to sold-out concerts, but none of those will compare to the magnitude and scale of the 2026 World Cup, especially the World Cup final, which is awarded to MetLife Stadium. And according to the governor's office, the World Cup will generate at least $2 billion, not million, $2 billion in economic activity in the region. And it will create 14,000 new jobs. Visit New Jersey expects more than 1 million tourists to visit our region during the tournament. So we want to get it right. And while New Jersey has been viewed as a progressive state, we know that there is still a lot of work to be done, and there are still a lot of disparities. Actually, recently, back in January, a report showed that here in New Jersey, there is a wide disparity when it comes to public construction contracts. Just 3.7% of prime contracts went to minority-owned business, valued up to $5.7 million, while women-owned businesses comprised nearly 38% of all service firms, but received less than 10% of contracts, some of them up to $800,000. So if we get this right, it will be huge for the community as a whole. We think about equity and inclusion. New Jersey is an arena for sports, talent, business, and media. Outlets like mine, NJPBS, and other local multimedia outlets are watching the excitement build up. The state has a substantial opportunity to not only raise revenue, but showcase the fabric and ambition of the Garden State business community. I've had the privilege of speaking with women and minority-owned businesses and owners that are primed to serve the diverse World Cup audience, from East Rutherford to Southern New Jersey. The importance of the diverse business community being part of the World Cup in New Jersey is beyond impact. There are more than 320,000 women-owned businesses. That's about 40% of the companies in the state, and women make up almost half of all employees in the Garden State. That's something to keep in mind. In supporting that diversity, I recently had host committee members and business leaders discuss the steps the state is taking to prepare to host the event and how the business community stands to benefit. That means everything from transportation to marketing with things like a fan app to making sure transportation partners have their sites in different languages to help travelers to get around, all things that are important. It's a community event, and I think that's the way we really need to view this. The goal is to get international visitors into neighboring towns and cities as well. That, of course, means more business and the need for more staff in the hospitality sector. And as Jim Kirkos, president and CEO of the Meadowlands Chamber, said it, we need to activate here in New Jersey. The state can also expect fan engagement, whether or not you have a ticket. New Jersey will have watch parties and other events going on to feel the spirit of their nation or country participating. This is another stepping stone for the business community, as the impact is now global for the state, which means this probably won't be the last time we are on the international stage for an event, which is why we need to get it right. Like you, I will be watching the progress of high-profile events with my reporting on njspotlightnews.org, which you can check out on air or online at NJPBS. And one thing is for sure, we are definitely ready in Jersey. Definitely, we got this for sure. Thank you so much.
Now, please join me in welcoming to the stage a proud alum of William Paterson University and the Executive Director of the New Jersey Pride Chamber of Commerce, Gus Penaranda.
Hey. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for being part of this and for those that are watching around the world. The New Jersey Pride Chamber would like to take this opportunity to thank the host, President Richard Heldobler, and the production crew and staff and volunteers at William Paterson University. Without their help, their technique, their support, this would not be possible. We'd also like to take the opportunity to support one organization that has been with us since the inception of the organization, and that is our good friends at BCB Bank. They have been an amazing partner, and their support helps us create programs such as this. We also want to acknowledge some of the member clubs that are part of the international LGBTQ+IA soccer community, and they are part of an organization known as the International Gay and Lesbian Football Association. These football clubs are currently watching the live stream around the world, and they include such clubs as the Federal Triangles in Washington, D.C., the New York Ramblers, Boston Strikers, Toronto United in Canada, Stonewall in London, Sydney Rangers, Australia, West Hollywood Football Club, California, San Diego Sparks, California, Space City, Houston, San Francisco Spikes, Las Muñecas, Mexico, Imperial FC, Mexico, and DD6, Mexico. And of course, the host of the 2024 International Gay and Lesbian Football Association World Championship, Los Dogos in Buenos Aires, Argentina. We thank everyone that took time out of their weekend to be part of this event. And I just wanted to end by saying that the World Cup, the energy is here. And we will continue talking about the World Cup. And now, with your support and those that are watching, we are going to make sure that diversity, equity, and inclusion remain part of the conversation. Thank you.
Please join me in welcoming to the stage Lauren LaRusso. Lauren is the co-host, city manager of the FIFA World Cup 2026 New York, New Jersey host committee.
Thank you. I first want to thank our hosts, William Paterson University, as well as our organizers, the New Jersey Pride Chamber of Commerce. Just a huge lift in putting this together, so thank you. The FIFA World Cup 2026 New York, New Jersey host committee is the local organizing body responsible for 8 FIFA World Cup matches in the New York, New Jersey region, including the coveted final match. The organization coordinates between government, business, and community stakeholders and works directly with FIFA to ensure world-class planning and delivery of infrastructure, facilities, and services. Our goal is to create the most engaging, accessible, and impactful FIFA World Cup experience for all fans, athletes, partners, and our diverse New York, New Jersey communities, using soccer and the FIFA World Cup as a vehicle for advancing social change and social justice. I'm honored today to introduce Gerd Debowski, Senior Diversity and Anti-Discrimination Manager for FIFA, as our keynote presenter today. Gerd has been leading FIFA's No Discrimination initiative for the last 10 years, which aims to rid the soccer world of discrimination in any and every form. Before we bring Gerd on stage, let's take a look at some of his work.
Eu sou Cristiano Ronaldo.
Eu sou a Marta. I'm Millie Bright.
Fußball ist für alle da.
Je crois que tout le monde a le droit d'être aimé et de jouer comme il le veut.
Dlatego razem z FIFA mówię nie dla dyskryminacji. みんなの力を合わせて差別をなくしましょう。
저와 함께해요.
And say no discrimination.
Moderator.
Sumare. Rejoignez-moi.
Join me.
Welcome, Gerd.
Thank you very much, Lauren, for the kind introduction. And thanks, everyone, for being here. Thanks to everyone watching us live and maybe watching us later when we have the recording online. So before I want to dig deeper into what I'm doing at FIFA and what FIFA is doing against discrimination, I would like to tell you a little bit more about myself. And I don't do that very often. So I have to read out a little bit. It sounds weird because it's my story, but if I wouldn't, I'd get carried away. I steal more from your time, and I get too emotional. And we all know that. If you're at your workplace, don't get too emotional. So more than 30 years ago, I started as an activist and a young social scientist, combining soccer and anti-discrimination. I never did anything else. Trying my best to be an ally in my professional, business, and private life is deeply embedded here, here, and here. Continuously reflecting my white privilege helps me not to lose the ground beneath my feet, trying my best to uplift BIPOC talents and support racialized, marginalized, and underrepresented individuals and communities. But for sure, and I can understand that, I can hear people say, why again? Why again do we have to listen to elder, white men, even coming from Europe, talking about racism, discrimination, diversity, equity, inclusion, belonging? Why? I can understand that, but still here's my story. I would never dare to say what I will tell you now is called racism, although the UN definition might. I would never even dare to say that what I'm saying now is called xenophobia, but my expert colleagues around me would say it would be okay to say so. I don't care about giving it a name, right? Terminology, it's just my story. It's what I went through, and it had an impact on me, and it still has. So, and please don't understand my experience as a comparison or even as equalizing to people who suffer from racism and other forms of discrimination every day, personally and structurally. So, I'm a son of Polish refugees. They arrived in Germany in the late 1960s. I'm the first born in Germany, early 70s. My stepdad was a forklifter in a meat factory. And he never came home because he had to stay longer. The Germans said, if you don't stay longer, we will find somebody else who will even do your job for less than the shitty money that you make. So the way I know my dad is like he comes home, he falls asleep on the couch right away. My mom would wake him up in the night, and he would go straight off back to work. You know, Polish people, you might not think about it that way now because there's a lot of Polish people who can be very racist too. But back then, and I'm speaking about the 70s, the 80s, that's what I know of, that's where I'm coming from, Polish people were widely treated in Germany as servants by heritage. Polish people are Slavic people. And Slavic people were often called less civilized. And the Nazi idea of Slavic people as the subhumans still played a role in many people's minds and their biases. The word slave, Spanish, esclavo, French, esclave, German, sklave, and I could continue that. The word slave derives from the word Slav, and that is the Slavic people. The Slavs were taken as slaves by the Muslims of Spain during the 9th century. Sometimes when we were playing soccer in the yard between our blocks, the German kids would come and say, today we play Germans against Kanaks and Polacks. And that's the K word for people of Turkish descent and the P word for people like me. And I was considered the latter, so I never got to play with the Germans. I didn't care, no worries. What I worried a little bit more is that there were times when we won, and they couldn't stand that. So they were waiting until many of our team left the stage, grabbed 2 or 3 of us, took them into a basement for hours, and humiliated us and throw cups full of urine at us. And once we had to pull a Turkish kid out of the overground canalization behind our blocks, because Germans had shackled the person, and we had to, just save the person. So I carry the German passport. But what happened in my past is the reason why I could never cheer for the German team. Until last year. What happened? The German under-17, the youth team in soccer, won the World Cup won the World Cup and in Indonesia, and that was thanks to many POC players and players of other ethnic minorities. And I was watching that World Cup with my little son, and I felt hope that it would be easier for him than it was for me. Although my son is a West African prince of the Baoulé people of Côte d'Ivoire, which many people here may still call Ivory Coast. My wife is a queen-to-be of the Baoulé people, a direct descendant of Queen Poku, breaking away from the Ashanti people of Ghana and founder of the Baoulé people in the 18th century. So on top of my story, there's now my wife and the future of my son. And I cannot imagine having any other job, any other life. That's all I know. I still very much hope, though, that my son will not play for Germany. If he can, that he will decide to play for Côte d'Ivoire. But again, me telling you all this is not about justifying my professional position. It's not about comparing or even leveling certain ways of suffering. Most people suffer much, much more than I ever did or will. I simply believe that all of this was critical to me sliding into and not choosing my professional path that I'm still on. This is about recognizing each other's journeys and fights, my story, and finding the crossroads where we all can meet and stand up together wherever we work, suffer, and shine. Lifting each other up in solidarity. I think that's what I wanted to pass before now moving on to the slides. I have to find my clicker. So here we go. So yeah, talking about diversity and anti-discrimination at FIFA is more than just talking about tournaments, because we do work at 6 to 8 World Cups every year. At some less, at some more, depending on where it is and what the budget is for it. But we also support our 211 member associations, and that's more national associations than the United Nations has in countries. So we support them and try to strengthen their approach against discrimination. So apart from any strategy, what I'm showing you now are standard measures for our past tournaments that you will most likely see here too, because they are standard measures. You cannot just erase them anymore. And it's not related to any country. It's just based on our good experience and the facts. So everything what we do is based on our Article 4 of the FIFA statutes, and if you see the terminology, you may disagree. It's not easy to come up with a terminology that fits everyone globally, so please bear with us. I just will not read out my slides that much. I just wanted to show you the long list of things. When you would look at the FIFA statutes in the 1950s or 60s, this list would have been smaller, and I'm sure in 5 years we will see a development here because that topic is fluid and terminology changes. Every 4 years in a cycle, we have new strategic objectives, and also in this new cycle, we have the strategic objectives of human rights and anti-discrimination, of social responsibility and the environment included in our strategic objectives. So it's pretty much clear, and that goes beyond tournaments. That's an organizational approach. But I'm the operational guy. So I usually enter the stage when we are very close to the game. So I'm not used to being here so early. So I want to dive deeper into what I know, and that's the operational side. When we operationally look at anti-discrimination at FIFA competitions, but also when we talk to our member associations, the national football associations, we call them member associations, we have 5 pillars in place. Of course, the basis for everything is Pillar 1 regulations. Like everything derives from it. We continuously have to update them to bring them to the standards of today. Then on one side, we have controls and sanctions. And on the other side, then, of course, education. And when I came to FIFA, football believed much, much more in the idea of we can solve everything on our own. We just don't need external experts, etc. And I saw that football was always reinventing the wheel and sometimes doing it a little bit worse than what could have been done when the best experts would have been included. And that's why the pillar networking and cooperation is existing here, to show everyone we support that you include people, that you have a robust stakeholder engagement going on when you run an event or when you run your own association. Also, of course, in the end, it's communication, so do all these good things and hopefully do more and more and more, because we are not doing enough, we are never doing enough, that's clear, but we are on a good path, I would say. Otherwise, trust me, I would not be working with FIFA anymore. And so communications, do good things and talk about it. And I will, before I tell you what kind of activities are under these 5 pillars, I want to rush you a little bit through what my colleague is doing, because of course accessibility in barrier-free stadiums belongs to anti-discrimination, but it's not my core working area. So my colleague is not here, I'm rushing through it. I hope she is fine with what I'm doing now. Hello, Halla, if you're watching. What we do is clearly related to infrastructure, right? So accessible toilet facilities, changing restrooms, special changing restrooms, ramps, handrails, etc. But it goes to the parking areas, to accessibility seats, not only wheelchair seats, but also seats that are amenity seats, up to sensory rooms. And at tournaments where we couldn't afford, or the host city with us together couldn't afford sensory rooms, we had sensory packages. Sometimes we have both, most of the time, hopefully. And to deliver all this on the ground, we have dedicated volunteers that get a specific training on how to support people with special needs. And in the end, we also have audio descriptive commentary, which is very, very well received at FIFA tournaments, so people that are partially sighted or blind can enjoy the match. And something that is often overseen is color blindness. That is actually very important. It's also very important for marketing, right? To make sure that contrast of shirts, of the colors of the shirt is clear. You can see on the left side how people like I, who is not partially sighted or colorblind, see things, and how people may see it, that see things in a different way. And that's many, many people. So whenever the teams come, and in the US we will have not only 3 countries, for the first time 16 stadiums and cities, and more than double the amount of, nearly double the amount of matches than we had ever before. 48 teams, right? So we receive all these shirts, and we have to run them through the program and make sure that it works. When Team A plays Team B, and everyone will have probably 3 sets to make sure this is possible. And then on top of that, you get the captain's armbands, right? Which probably also have then a different color. And it's a tricky situation sometimes, but it works out. So coming back to these 5 pillars, and that's where we are coming back to what I'm doing, is I will not read out all the regulations. You've heard the FIFA statutes that we have, Article 4. Everything is based on that, so we have the disciplinary code, the code of ethics, and we have further documents that are very important to me. For me, operationally, the Global Guide to Discriminatory Practices is very, very important, because it shows 350 examples and more on how discrimination can be displayed in stadiums all across the world. So we can support this on the ground, that people understand, identify them, and can make sure that this behavior can be stopped or can be even avoided if it's on a banner or a flag. The key element here for me is mainstreaming anti-discrimination tournament policies and procedures before the tournament, and this can be up to 160 policies and procedure for a big tournament like 26, for example. Starting with the uniform policy. What do you need to take care of when it's about anti-discrimination? How should the shoes be? How should they not be? Up to last mile access control and how people will be treated there. I like to focus a little bit on the FIFA disciplinary code. I just show you this as a proof. It's not so important. I just want to show when we have a strict liability principle. So if there is a discriminatory incident in the stadium, the Football Association to which the fans belong could be punished. And that's starting with fines, that's starting with partial stadium closures, with full stadium closures, up to point deduction, for example. And what is very important maybe for our discussion later on with the clubs is that apart from punitive sanctions, we now, and that's very new, we also have educational sanctions. So that a fine that was before paid to FIFA will be now reinvested in the country in preventive measures. And our FIFA disciplinary code, and I'm very grateful for this, points out what people need to do to prepare that the sanction doesn't happen again. That is educational activities, looking specifically on the training of stadium security, creating a fan dialogue, for example, and then also don't do that alone, as I already said, create partnerships that are valuable. So, controls and sanctions, first part. Now the educational side of it. Before every World Cup, we see, where are we at? What's the country? Is there a specific issue within the leagues that might have an effect on the later tournament? Because mostly people that go to soccer in the country where a tournament will be, many of them will also try to get tickets for the World Cup. So, of course, we look at Mexico, Canada, and the US and will approach our colleagues there. And we already know them. We work with Mexico and the US very long, for example. What can we do to support? Is there something we can do to prepare for the World Cup? For the teams themselves, we do team briefings in many ways. We have handbooks, we have team arrival meetings where people get to know, like also the players today. It's a different generation of players. They want to know what they can do when they face racism on the pitch, for example. And we have training on all sorts of sides. I will give you an example in a minute, so I will not jump deeper into this now. We have also we try to contribute to the training of public security forces. Sometimes we can get to do this more, but we cannot really push the local people to do that, but mostly they are very helpful because we bring a lot of international experience from other tournaments, because believe me, you will welcome the world. And that's a different situation. There's many, many people coming here, and they are not only supporting their teams. While they are here, they will try to see as many matches as possible. And there's many people from countries coming here, or will be coming here, that are not even qualified, because they just want to be close to the event. They just want to show, right? I mean, like, for example, Russia is the best example in comparison to the US. Russia World Cup in 2018. What was the biggest community traveling to Russia in 2018 outside Russia? It was US citizens. And the US was not even qualified, right? And it was a big amount of people who just want to enjoy that moment, who probably get the first chance to get to a place like Russia, or who come from a certain background that they want to see Colombia, Ecuador, Peru, etc. play. And you can see that now will happen vice versa. You will get many, many people that you don't expect to see. It will be great. And information materials for fans, of course, that's important for us. We have a fan guide where we get more and more of a bigger slot to include, for example, topics of intercultural communication, cultural misunderstandings and how to avoid that. We also support other people's materials. We had a diversity guide for the last 2 World Cup provided by our service provider, the FAIR Network, which is one of the most renowned anti-discrimination soccer networks in the world. We also support the Human Rights Guide by the Center for Sports and Human Rights and Football Supporters Europe, where fans get to know what to do when there's fire. How can I find help? How can I get on back to the right path at this tournament? So trainings, I said, I have a few examples. So on one side, we train a lot the match officials. For example, the referees need to know how to stop a match, how to suspend the match and send the players back to the dressing room, how to even abandon a match if a racist or a homophobic incident or a sexist incident won't cease. That's the so-called 3-step procedure that we have in place. And everybody in the chain needs to know what to do at the right time. So the referee needs to know who to reach out and how to do that, and that it gets to our security colleagues that can then make a broader assessment and then get back to the referee to stop the match, suspend the match, or even abandon the match. We had reactive stadium announcements in place that are not interfering with the match. That's kind of like a step 0, right? So before the 3-step procedure would be initiated, we have this reactive stadium announcement, and we never needed to use the 3-step procedure, luckily, because the reactive stadium announcement, together with ongoing regular security measures, would stop the incidents that we have. On the other side, we train our event time staff. So that also includes volunteers that come from sometimes all over the world. They want to get the experience. They also want to get the reference in their CV to be volunteers at a World Cup, working in hospitality, working in supporting people, like, for example, also as human rights volunteers. We also have human rights volunteers at neuralgic points in the cities, inside, outside the stadium, to accompany the fans and their journey and ask them and try to maybe use that also, that survey of the human rights volunteer, to be able to escalate things behind the scenes if things go wrong. We do sensitization for unconscious bias. We do a lot about intercultural communication. For example, stewards need to know a lot about how do I identify a discriminatory banner or flag, while people who sell food and beverage or merch need to know more about nonverbal communication. Because you will speak to people a lot that, even me, like my native language, of course, you hear it, is not English. So you tend to do more with your hands and stuff. And you know, I know that this gesture in America means brilliant, right? Great. But in Brazil, it can be a homophobic insult. So, right? I mean, so when you're in, that's just a very good example, I would say, because it also happens in real life. We had stewards at our events that communicate like that because they're far away, right? And you cannot just scream around. So you just show like, everything is good here. And there were Brazilian fans running around, and they were nearly attacking our steward because they thought that the local steward is insulting the visitors, right? There's many, many layers of trainings that we have, tailor-made trainings that we do, depending on which area you work in. Also, education, we also do it a lot beyond tournaments, right? And then sometimes I switch to the work that we do beyond tournaments. So we have an engagement strategy for our member associations. We prioritize member associations that already got sanctioned for discriminatory behavior because they have a dear interest also in mitigating. We look at member associations that haven't been sanctioned but are often sometimes at risk because of the current situation, geopolitical situation, whatever. And we also have for them then the FIFA Good Practice Guide on diversity and anti-discrimination. That's a non-exhaustive but pretty much of a good compendium of good practice we collected from all around the world. They might not fit one by one from one country to another, but if people can anticipate, it really makes good sense to look at it, and it also shows how to structurally build anti-discrimination work up in your organization. And then another example of it's just selected measures. I cannot get to all of it, but we have our FIFA Women's Development Program where women in leadership from all member associations will be invited to, or even people who are not in leadership yet, will be invited to become leaders, to develop, to get further education, and do better work on the ground. That's very important for us because we can only shine if our member associations shine wherever they are. Then we do the Footballs for Schools program, which is a program launched in more than 100 countries in the world at the moment, and it's growing and growing. We want to go everywhere. The Football for Schools is something that everybody can use. It's an app, so when you Google Football for Schools and FIFA, you will find the app. And it's good materials for teachers and coaches. It has been developed together with the UNESCO. So you find, I'm not quite sure about the total number at the moment, but it's probably 200 different lessons that are helpful when you want to use football as a tool for social development and strengthening youth, for example. That's something we do. Then we have the FIFA Foundation, which is a different entity. They do the FIFA Foundation Community Program as one of their programs, and during this program they have more than 100, and next year it will probably be even more grassroots initiatives that they fund. They're mostly not related to our member associations. That's grassroots soccer in certain countries. For example, we had projects in the slums of Kampala in Uganda, where we strengthen people living there. We have a very good project moving the goalposts in Kenya, and they also were once runners-up to the FIFA Diversity Award, another thing that we did. And moving the goalposts, it was really amazing, because when we had the person from Kenya there, she said, you know, since the project is existing and since FIFA helped us to have this project, when one of our girls walks through Nairobi and they see, look, this is a moving the goalposts girl. She walks different. She has more confidence. So there's many, many projects and changes, but there's also many projects that reoccur so that we have a certain sustainability. And we also invite sometimes many projects whenever we have an event in the region to do further education with them, apart from funding, apart from monitoring, apart from evaluating them. Of course, we train our networks. We have a women's network, we have a pride network, for example, that also help pushing us things within the organization, with our staff. We are in Zurich. It's very much in the deepest part of Central Europe. But we want to reflect our member associations in our organization. So it's not like Germans with a Polish background like me working there, or Swiss people. It's people from all over the world. And there are different networks to support people to settle in and to also develop our organization beyond tournaments. We have then, of course, the harassment and prevention training for FIFA employees. That doesn't sit with me, although I sometimes can give input. That is sitting with our people in culture, former HR. And, of course, when it's about education, we cannot miss to mention the FIFA Museum in Zurich. It also has a digital exhibition, a digital visit tour that you can do, where I, for example, personally offer diversity tours through the museum, because the museum shows the history of all FIFA World Cups, and I'm trying to tell the history through a different lens. I already mentioned something about controls and sanctions, so we can save some time. So that's just for you to remember. We have the three-step procedure. I already mentioned it. On top of that, we have the anti-discrimination monitoring system. And that's a standard we do at all World Cups. That means we have a pool of about like 100 specially trained match observers all around the world that will come to your country and they will observe every single team. And when Mexico plays Japan, it will not be a German guy observing them. It will be a guy that is Mexican, or at least from the region. Same for Japan, because these people have to understand the language of the fans, the specificities of their rivalries, of their fan culture, to be able to identify discriminatory behavior. Because in some countries, the word cat is a very positive word. In some other countries, the word cat can be a very, very offensive slur. And you have to adapt to all of this. We have human rights assessors on top of that. So that is a person that will be sitting in the video control room in each stadium and also gets access to everything that comes into the gates through an app, through a messenger group, where things that cannot be identified, and sometimes it's like 10 or 30 items per minute, coming in on shirts, on banners, on flags, and there is an expert who has a special knowledge on general human rights statement and anti-discrimination statements that we want to make it in, right? That's very important. And then there is a clear guideline on how to draw the line on what is political, what is offensive, and what is discriminatory. So we are supporting security with this service on top of our brand colleagues who do the same for guerrilla marketing, for example. Then we have the human rights volunteers. I already explained what they are. And on top of all of that, we have a human rights grievance mechanism in place based on the UNGPs, the United Nations Guiding Principles for Business and Human Rights. And all of what we do is based on these UNGPs. The human rights grievance mechanism is a complaint mechanism where we would filter complaints that are directly for FIFA, and we try to find a remedy. If not, we would revert them to or refer them to the local grievance mechanisms, or get in touch with the business relationship partners that are affected, for example, or caused a complaint, or with local governments to kind of find a remedy. We would accompany that process to ensure that it will not be delayed or stopped. Then in the end, that is all in real life, right? The human rights complaint then is something that happens a little bit after you have been at a match, for example. We protect our players, our match officials, and also people from member associations that work at member associations, referees also, in a social media protection service. So what we do is we monitor all material that is publicly available on their accounts. So we monitor every account of every player. And if something offensive, political, or discriminatory would show up, we would, of course, filter it and send it, or we would identify it and send it to the platforms. We have a specific deal with certain platforms where we can hand in bunches of these things, so they take it down faster for us than for others, which is very helpful during the tournament during the tournament time, because we want to ensure that our players can enjoy the tournament, can concentrate on what they need to do, and that is scoring goals or protecting goals from happening. Another layer is that players and others can onboard proactively with their accounts. That could be like X, TikTok, Meta, YouTube. They can onboard, and if they onboard, we don't get into their DMs, not yet, but we have something like a Trojan horse that we build in front of their accounts that works partly with AI and a lot with human intelligence to identify things, and when we do that, the players wouldn't see them because we would take them down. The players would give us the permission to hide them, and then, in parallel, go to the platforms. But the players would not even see what they don't want to see. And this is faster than when you want to do it with your Facebook page or so, because it takes a long time. You have to type in all the keywords. We have keywords in many, many languages, up to 35 and more languages now. And players can add words they want to add. So, for example, there was a famous player, a very world-famous player, who added a word that we haven't even heard about, but he faced it a lot as a slur, and it was added. Some players just don't want to have their name of their son or daughter being named, even in a positive way, right? And it's their account, so we follow that. So that's what we do on controls and sanctions. I already explained what the human rights assessor did. So if you want to rewatch this event, you have this as a reminder. I'm sometimes faster than my own slides. Bear with me. The monitoring system, I already explained a little bit. What is important here is that it's not only match observers going to a match. It's much, much more. And before reading that out, I have been already speaking a lot. I can probably skip that and show you the same thing I wanted to say in a video. The major objective behind that was to get more expert knowledge aboard, especially neutral expert knowledge from people who know the discriminatory incidents in their own countries, understand the languages, understand the fan culture of the fans in the stadium at a specific match. And we managed to scout people all over the world to do so.
I think there's been a lot of work been done over the years on trying to educate people about not just things that are unacceptable, but things that might cause harm. And if you are, for example, chanting things that are damaging to a section of a population, whether it's your population or the population of another country, and that often happens through nationalism, or indeed you're targeting a minority, whether it's a racial or ethnic minority, or someone on the basis of their sexual orientation, that could be hugely damaging.
During the match also, our anti-discrimination match observers give an instant idea of an incident to our security, which goes through myself as the human rights and anti-discrimination assessor, and then our match officials will decide what to do. We have security measures in place, which start with like removing people, removing items, up to stopping the match.
Both the associations and their fans understand the sort of things that they should, they can or can't do. And then when it comes to stadiums, to be talking to people on the day to try to understand, get an understanding across to them why there are some banners that are not allowed because of the messaging on them, and then also why there are songs and other forms of support which they may not recognise are not within the FIFA regulations legally, but then also are just not the sort of things that you want to see around football.
All right, I mentioned that one already. Networking cooperation, it's pretty straightforward. Of course, work with the people that are the experts in the area that you need to work with. That can be sometimes very, very grassroots initiatives, but we also have many MOUs, of course, with UN organizations, with other intergovernmental organizations such as CARICOM. And yeah, so we try to enlarge that as much as possible and also put projects to it, right? Often an MOU means often you just report to each other what you are doing. But we are trying to get to the next stage and doing more and more projects through our MOUs. The FAIR Network is a very important partner to us. I already mentioned it. You have seen Piara Powell, their CEO, in the video in many, many ways. We also work, of course, a lot with stakeholders that are in different countries and try to match them with countries that probably already got sanctions. So if they don't know these organizations, we try to bring people together. But we also have, with our member associations, sometimes the same thing. We had one member association that came to us and said, oh, we have a big, big tournament, and we want to introduce gender-neutral toilets, or all-gender toilets, and we don't know how to do it. But we knew that the German FA, the German Football Association, already has all-gender toilets since 2017 at all of their home games. So we just basically brought them together, moderated it, and tried to create some knowledge transfer. Yeah, and then last but not least, of course, we have communication. And that's everything you see in the end. And to be honest, our communications campaigns are not bad, they're good. But I'm a practitioner in the area. For me, it's important that they highlight the work that we do on the ground and not just another tagline, not just another exposure on LEDs. That's important, you need to have that. We have that on the giant screens, on the LEDs. We have banners on the pitch together with the national flags for a certain cause. And what was very good for me was the idea that we had at the Women's World Cup in Australia and New Zealand, where we had too many campaigns. But they were valuable, because why? We developed them together with all players of the teams. And we wanted them to know, which armband do you want to wear? What should we put on it, right? And there were so many issues they wanted to address that we dedicated match days to a different theme, right? And you can see the themes here, especially Australia and New Zealand. You can imagine we worked from the design to the special welcoming of Aboriginal people, Torres Strait Islander people, and Maori people, and embedded that into the whole tournament, into the supply chains, etc. And then at the end, also we had the players underlining what has been done at the tournament. That's when a campaign gets valuable. Unite for Inclusion, you can see the armband here. It's not a classic rainbow, it's a symbol developed in Europe. You can see the parts of the Pan-African flag on top and the pansexual flag below. They just wanted to say it's another statement against discrimination. So we have our own No Discrimination campaign, right? And that is no discrimination, not using words, but using a symbol. But they wanted this, and we did that in Australia and New Zealand. We had another one on gender equality, and then a special focus on a match day on ending domestic violence. That is a topic that follows us, or we follow it, for a long, long time. I think since 2017 at one of our women's youth tournaments in Papua New Guinea, where we had a high rate of domestic violence, and having a youth women's tournament, it was a no-brainer to start in doing this campaign, and we are doing it since then. Unite for Peace, Unite for Zero Hunger, and Education for All are very topics that are dear to us, but also dear to the UN. And that's why we had always a different UN agency or UN department as a partner for each campaign. The Safe Home campaign is another part of our fight against domestic violence. That was a campaign that was especially developed during COVID times, where we realized that people face a lot of domestic violence because they're always at home, and things happen there and they shouldn't happen, and we should stop that. In the end, the rest is needless to say. We do public events like this. We go somewhere, we do it in our museum, we launch events, of course, and we regularly, and also about this event, we will talk in our media channels about it. So that's just to present you that we are just doing more than a tagline, and I'm doing this work since nearly 10 years. In October it will be 10 years, and believe me, I never had a corporate job in my life. When I joined FIFA, I thought, well, I'll probably last for 6 months and I cannot deal with that anymore because I want to see change. And I was fighting like in my life as an activist for 20 years, but after 10 months being at FIFA, I said, I've changed more in 10 months than in 10 years as an activist because I was suddenly at the other part of the table. And I'm not hiding at the table, and I will not. Thank you very much for listening.
Now, please welcome to the stage a friend of William Paterson University, Tom Bergeron, editor, ROI, New Jersey.
Thank you all. Great to be here. Gerd, what a terrific presentation. Your personal touch was truly appreciated by all of us. A round of applause.
I hope I didn't trigger anybody because that was not my intention. I'm sorry if I did.
I'm Tom Bergeron, I'm the editor of ROI-NJ. We're a business journal in the state of New Jersey. I was humbled and honored when I was asked to moderate this event for a couple of reasons. I didn't realize how much we have in common with FIFA, and I'll say it this way. We're a business journal. We cover the news, coming, going, up, down, traditional business news, but we've always viewed ourselves as more than that. And I'd like to think, I thought of myself, discrimination. The opposite of discrimination is inclusion. And we try to make a point at ROI to include all of the businesses in the state. We work with the Hispanic Chamber, we work with the African American Chamber, we work with the LGBTQ Chamber, we work with the Pride Chamber. We want to get the news about all business out in the state. We do influencers lists to identify the best of the best in those communities. And why do we do that? It's not just to give a tip of the hat to the people who deserve it and who are working so hard, but it's to educate everyone about what's going on in the business community in the state of New Jersey, which is a majority-minority state. So we're very proud of that. We're proud to highlight all of the stuff that people do because we want people to understand. And I think that's part of what the No Discrimination Plan is. It's the idea of educating what's going on in the world. We talk about the challenges that minority groups, I feel hesitant to say women as a minority group because they're more than 50% of the population, but in the business community, they face the same challenges. So we like to point those out. When you educate people, that's when you can make change. And it should be noted, despite all of the challenges that the so-called minority groups have in the business community, we proudly point out the #1 entrepreneurial group in the state of New Jersey starts more businesses than anyone, Latinas. Hispanic women. Round of applause, absolutely. #2, not far behind, African American women. So if we can draw attention to that, that's great. And the idea that FIFA is going to use a sporting event, when I was preparing for this, I was thinking a much, much younger version of myself attended a World Cup game in 1994 in New Jersey. Luck of the draw, I happened to see Bulgaria beat Germany in one of the biggest upsets in World Cup history. My Bulgarian friend talks about it to this day every time I see him. That's an incredible legacy of the event. As we all know in the United States, the '94 World Cup helped launch MLS, which brought professional soccer back to the U.S. We've now grown. We've now added a women's league. It's fantastic. That's an incredible legacy of the 1994 World Cup. The idea that this World Cup coming to New Jersey can have a legacy that has nothing to do with soccer, that has nothing to do with wins and losses, and has everything to do with basic human rights and basic human decency is unbelievable. That FIFA and Gerd, thank you so much for taking that on. We're glad to be here. Round of applause. Come on, these are big moments. Let's appreciate what FIFA's doing, what the New York, New Jersey host committee is doing, what we're all doing together. So speaking of together, I'm going to invite up our panelists right now to talk about some of the things that the local clubs are doing. So joining me on stage, let's start with Elisa Padilla of the New York Red Bulls, Chief Marketing Officer. Next up, Jennifer O'Sullivan, Chief Operating Officer, NYCFC.
Hi. Nice to meet you, Gerd.
Next up, Sarah, Chief of Staff, NJNY Gotham, and I don't even think I got the first name right. Last but not least, from the host committee, Brianna Keys. So let's set the scene, set the stage for what we want to do here. We want to talk about what FIFA's doing. Gerd gave a wonderful presentation, but we want to bring it home to a personal and local level. We want to talk about how FIFA's working to improve the game around the world, but how around the world we can take those messages and improve the game and improve society at all levels. In the United States, that would be college and high school level, clubbed play around the world, youth and rec league. That's what we're doing this for, and why are we doing it? It was never so clear just this year. The recent CONCACAF Nations League final between the U.S. and Mexico was stopped for homophobic chants. The final, they had to stop the game. Not once, but twice. It's incredible. Brazilian star Vini Jr., some of you saw it on YouTube, in a press conference in Europe, talking about the discrimination that he has faced playing in Spain. Broke down in tears, one of the world-class players talking about how this is impacting his desire to even play the game that he loves. Again, this didn't happen in 1994. This happened in March of 2024. These are the things that we can address. This is what we can do. FIFA's initiative, I'm going to put 4 bullet points. They want to raise awareness about the overall anti-discrimination initiative that they have. They want to inform all stakeholders about standard anti-discrimination measures. They want to learn about local and regional needs. What do local teams need to help them do their job? And they want to demonstrate a desire to engage local civil society groups to make this change happen. So let's start. Let's talk about policies, initiatives, and I think one thing Gerd mentioned is that they're different in all areas. So I'm going to start with Jennifer and say, let's talk about your club. Talk about some of the things that you're doing specifically. How do you introduce this to your players, to your staff, to your fan base, to the youth club? Give me some examples and I'll invite other people to jump in.
Yeah, well, and I think, thank you for the question. You know, when you're a professional soccer team, like my colleagues and I up here, when you're running a club, it isn't just your fan base, it isn't just your players. You know, we have a very robust community program, and so we have over 30,000 kids over the last 10 years who we've served with free soccer programming across the 5 boroughs of New York. That's a very different demographic and group than come through our youth programs, which are our pay-to-play programs, our camps and our clinics. That's also a very different group than comes through our youth academies, which are our elite players, U12 to U17. Then you have our developmental team, which is usually college-age players, and then you have our first-team players. So the needs are very varied, and the way that you address them is very different. But I think for us, the approach is being proactive. The reality is we're all human beings, and people are going to make mistakes, and things are going to happen. But what we want to do is set the right tone and set the right culture. And for us, particularly in our club, I think that we never lose sight of the fact that here in New York, we are the most diverse city in probably the country, if not the world. And that's a blessing for us. But it also brings around certain challenges too. Our player base is incredibly diverse. Our fans are incredibly diverse. And so is our staff, because we seek to make sure that we represent this great city across all of those facets of our organization. And so you have to create an environment not where you have diversity, but where you have a feeling of inclusivity and a feeling of belonging. And people do not feel like tokens, and they do not feel like it's very check the box, but that you are creating this culture and this environment where people feel welcome. They feel they can bring their whole selves to work or to play or whatever it may be. And so we spend a lot of time on education and awareness and trainings, and not just check the box trainings, but making sure that they're very specific, you know, for our younger players, that it's anti-bullying and anti-harassment and understanding and how to be good teammates and how to respect one another from different cultures. I think we do that with our staff and with our players as well. But to me, it's really, really, really about understanding and knowing that we're all human beings. We all deserve respect. We all deserve dignity. And when we're looking to bring a player into our team, when we're looking to bring new staff members on board, those are the qualities that we look for. We do a lot of research into our players. We do a lot of work when we're onboarding new staff to make sure that, are these the people who espouse the same values that we do as an organization? And if so, then we welcome them in with open arms. And so I think that rather than being proactive when it comes to some of these things, setting the right tone and setting the right foundation along the way is critically important.
Elisa, let me go to you. I'm going to guess that at Red Bull, you probably have like a 10-minute conversation, maybe send out one email, and then you forget about it for 365 days. Look, this is something that needs to be 365-day-a-year training. There's no start and stop of this type of program. Talk a little bit about how at Red Bull, how you guys are continually implementing and talking about these issues.
Absolutely. So I echo Jen's comments in regards to we are in the most diverse market here in the U.S. and for us every single day is we live and we breathe our values, not only from a front office perspective, but it goes down all the way down to the academy, second team, first team, and we live it every single day. And I think that what's very, very important for us is not only it's respecting others, because not everyone is the same, but everyone deserves respect and everyone deserves to be seen and heard no matter where they are, right? So, and we're all human beings and we all experience the world differently, but at the core, it's the fact that we are good human beings. And soccer is a sport of community, and that's what we want to showcase not only internally but externally. And we work very, very closely with MLS. Our players are trained. I mean, we talk about DEI almost every day because it's important, and it's about, you can say it, but you have to acknowledge the behavior and how you behave and how you address certain things, and then it becomes part of the culture. So that's what we've been doing on a daily basis at the New York Red Bulls.
I just to touch on that, because I think that's such a great point, and I think it's something that's important for us too. It's not so much what you say. It's not about posting messages on Facebook, and it's not about the performative things, right? It is about what are your actions and what are your behaviors, right? Because that is really what counts the most. And we do our special theme nights, and we do a Black Excellence Match, and we do a Pride Night, and we do Women's Empowerment, and we do all of those things because they're important, but they aren't the only things we do because we live it every day. And I think that's where you can see the difference in an organization, when it is something that is lived every day.
Absolutely, and I think that, externally, like the theme nights, we also do the theme nights, and that's fan-facing because we want to be a place of belonging, and we want our fans to know no matter where you're from, no matter what you look like, this is your team and this is your home when you come to cheer on the club.
Fan-facing is a great point. I'm going to ask anyone to jump in here on the idea of how you're communicating that message with your fans, with your players, with your staff, online, in person, in the stadium. Talk about the various ways you do that and some of the successes you've had in doing that as a learning lesson.
Yeah, I mean, I think for us, I echo a lot of what you both were saying. It's something that has to be both woven foundationally into the DNA of the club, ensuring that everybody that joins our club, whether that's from a player, front office, fan, community representative standpoint, stands firm with us in that. I think when we sort of talk about these things that we've found success in, we're really fortunate that we have fans and we have supporters who not only want to accept our invitation to step in on this, but demand that we step into it with them. So, we have our supporters group, Cloud9, that has participated with us in Common Goals Play Proud program, which is specifically an LGBTQIA+ and DEI educational initiative. And we've worked then with them together to understand we might have our perspective on what will work from a fan-facing perspective to help educate them, to help ensure that we're creating this space. But we're actually bringing in our fans and our supporters group to tell us from their experience sitting in that supporters section, being the supporters that are going to our matches and MLS matches and national team matches, what they're seeing that's working and what they want us to kind of bring into our approach as well.
You make a great point there, and I've got the three of you together, and you're all located, unlike some other areas of the country, but I know you can talk. You can talk to FIFA, you can talk to people in your league, you can talk to the community. Talk about how you guys can share best practices. Is anyone picking up the phone and saying, hey, this initiative worked real well, you guys should try it, or people calling you and asking, how did that night go? How did you respond to that? Talk about that community.
Yeah, I think, so MLS has a program called the DEI Collective, and it's representatives from each of the clubs. I'm privileged to sit on that collective, and we have regular calls and conversations, share slides, and have each club sort of present. We do that at the MLS level too on the Chief Business Officer calls, where different clubs highlight some of their community efforts or initiatives, or some of their DEI initiatives. And it's a great opportunity to listen to your colleagues, to understand what some of their challenges are, to understand their successes, to be able to share your best practices, what's worked and what hasn't. And I think that is one of the places where I've realized that we really are privileged sitting in New York, because we have colleagues in other markets around the country where they're trying, and they're trying to bring in diversity, and they're trying to reach out, but they simply don't have the populations or the demographics that we do. And we are so rich in that space, and to be able to be lucky enough to be able to go out when you're hiring for new jobs, and to have a rich talent pool of diverse candidates coming through. And so those are some great resources that we have at the league level. But you always got great colleagues, to reach out to. And I think we've worked with Gotham over the years. I mean, anytime we've had panels or we've had opportunities where we could bring the women's games, we don't have a women's team of our own. How can we uplift them? How can we bring them into the conversation? We brought their players, we brought their leaders, and they've been fantastic to work with, because I think it's really important for us in this market that we sort of rely on each other in that space in terms of best practices and uplifting each other.
Now, for anyone who's been involved in coaching in any sort in athletics or in life, there's two ways to coach. You want people to mimic what's right, and you also want to discuss what's wrong. So unfortunately, there are a lot of examples of discrimination and anti-LGBT, or however you want to describe it, behavior, both in sport and society. Talk about times when you guys might see something happen in the world, something happens at a European game, and you realize, I need to address that with my staff, or I need to address that with the players, or maybe we need to think about this with the fans so it doesn't happen here. How can we take lessons from other events and make them a positive here?
Yeah, I mean, I think that that's something for us that's really important, and we have seen, even as recently as last year, when there are incidents in the global game that impact our athletes and impact our sport and the way we're doing things. For us, our immediate response is always to come together as a club. So we're really fortunate that we have athletes and we have a player leadership group that immediately comes to us, and we sit down as a front office, as a soccer operations team, and as our players. And for us, it's really a player-led piece. They come to us and they say, this is what I want to see. This is how this is impacting me. This is how I will feel safer in this community. This is how I will feel supported by Gotham as a club. For us in the past, it's been them telling us we want to wear the wristbands, we want to have a shirt, we want the statement that Gotham puts out publicly to say this. This is what's important to us, and this is really the way that we will feel supported. So we've been really fortunate to have that open dialogue, because I think our athletes have seen time and time again that that's baked into the foundation of what is important to us as a club, that they are really the leaders here, and we are here to support them and proactively do what it is that we need to protect them in those instances, but they tell us what that is for them.
Gerd, I'm going to jump in and put words in your mouth. How thrilling is it for you to be up here and hear the leaders of 3 local clubs talking about the stuff you've been talking about for 10 years, hearing that what FIFA's trying to get is resonating with some of these local clubs? That's got to be thrilling for you.
I mean, we only can do that because we know that they are doing that. We are learning from there, right? We're collecting good practice examples and trying to globalize them on a stage. And that's why that game is so rich. There you have that central organization that does something, but it wouldn't work without the other side. And that's so important. And sometimes I'm really, really jealous because, for example, when there is a fan issue, it's very complex when we work at FIFA because we have no team. We don't have that kind of fans, you know? So we have to reach out to the entity that is involved, a member association, a national team, and then try to solve it through them, and they have to solve it because they know their fans better than we do. But you have your guys every second weekend for a home match, many of them at an away match, and you could create a valuable fan dialogue if needed to kind of make an impact and then change behavior for the good. And that's sometimes what I like, to come back in touch with people who are working in this area, because for us it's just not there, right? I mean, we get the teams, but we don't organize as many matches as they do.
So Brianna, I'm going to go to you. The World Cup's going to come here in 2 years, and there's going to be a lot of victories. There's going to be victories on the pitch, there's going to be victories in the business community, but the victories you're going out for are going to be victories in social justice and social equity and awareness. Talk about how the host committee can take this event to make an impact in this area, in the New York, New Jersey community, to bring some of these issues outside of necessarily the soccer community, but just the entire community.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, I think that the World Cup coming here allows us to shine a spotlight on a lot of different issues, highlight a lot of different communities. You know, we really talk about our vision for these games, for this tournament in New York, New Jersey, is to center New Jerseyans and New Yorkers in our work, in our efforts to spread the literal and figurative wealth that is coming here. And we want, you know, kids today in 20 years, when they're in their 30s and 40s, to look back and say, I remember when the World Cup came to New York and New Jersey, and this is how it touched me. And for the overwhelming majority of them, that's not going to be that they got tickets to a game. I'm so glad that you did in '94, and I know so many will want to in
Just to be
26.
clear, nobody up here has any World Cup tickets, so
Yeah,
don't
no,
send any
we don't.
emails.
We don't.
Even Gerd, that's not the way it goes.
No, it's not. Right, so we're going to have fan festivals and watch parties and community activations, and for so many it's going to be, this is how my neighborhood transformed, this is how my mom and dad's business got involved, this is how, right, I felt heard and seen and included. And so what we're really doing, and you know, we've been privileged, I was in the governor's office in 2020 when I started working on the New York, New Jersey bid and writing the human rights report for this, and we immediately went to, this is bigger than soccer, and this is bigger than this tournament, and the ways that we can leverage the excitement around this and the focus on this to highlight our vulnerable communities and to bring folks in who may not otherwise, and historically have not otherwise been brought in. We are being really deliberate and going out to the community and saying, tell us what you need from us. Tell us how we can partner together and lift you up and bring you in.
For the clubs, I want to ask, when you go out, especially with the youth clinics and the youth clubs that you do, some specific examples where, look, we're going to work on set pieces, but we also want to work on sportsmanship. We also want to bring awareness. How soon does that begin? Are we talking about 8, 9, and 10? And what are some of the programs that you've seen have had effectiveness? Because not all programs work. I know you guys see the good and the bad.
Yeah, I think for us, it's day one. I mean, it's the second that you walk into our academy, the second that you're part of one of our camps and clinics. I mean, good sportsmanship starts from day one. So even if you're the little guy, you know, 4 years old, just starting your first clinic, I mean, it starts from day one, because the behavior, that's when you start, you know, coaching them on the field and how to be good teammates.
Yeah, it's the same. I mean, I think for us, like, we're a professional soccer team. It's not rocket science, but we recognize we have a platform, and it's a platform do good and to do a lot of good. And so for us, it's really the same. It starts with those kids when they're really young, and setting expectations and standards very early, and saying it is a privilege and an honor for you to wear our badge. You represent this club when you wear that badge and when you step outside onto the pitch, or when you're walking around outside of the pitch. And so we take that responsibility very seriously with our kids, whether they're in our academy, whether they're in our camps or clinics, whether they're in our community team. And as I said, those are different demographics of kids who come from different socioeconomic backgrounds and have different perspectives and experiences. And so we need to have our coaches trained very well to understand the kids that they're going to be working with. We have a large number of kids now in our community programs that are coming from migrant communities. And so they have very different experiences in life than the kids who are coming through our pay-to-play. And so the coaches have to be trained very differently to understand how to react to those children and how to help them. And so it's really important to understand who our audience is, so we can understand how to also help those kids and meet them where they're coming from.
As someone who's coached a youth team or two in his life, I will tell you that the parents and the fans can be more of a challenge than the players themselves. Talk about addressing those issues that you might hear from the stands, might hear at the side of a practice facility where people don't quite get what we're trying to do. How do you make sure that message gets to them as well?
I think for us it's the same in the beginning. When you come into our academy, and I'm sure it is with you guys, there's a conversation with parents that, you know, you don't coach your kids from the sidelines. You don't have a right to speak to other children. You're there to watch, you're there as observers, but these are kids.
Yep.
You know, first and foremost, they're kids playing a game. And while they are elite athletes and there's, you know, a lot of pressures that they can be under, it is first and foremost about them enjoying and having a love of this game of soccer. And I've seen parents with kids whose kids are so pressure-filled that they're ready to throw up before a tryout, or they're ready to throw up before a game, or they're getting yelled at the minute they get off the pitch. And it isn't about that, right? It's about creating a safe environment for them to just play the game and grow up with a love of the game. That's what we want, first and foremost, for these kids.
We're talking about the Men's World Cup. We also have the Women's World Cup, which is incredibly powerful here. I want to turn the attention a little bit to the woman athlete, the female athlete, because it's totally different. And I think society is starting to understand that. Same competitive nature, same talent, same desire to win, but there are issues specific to women and young girls that need to be addressed, starting from the coaching angle, starting from the training angle. Talk a little bit about, for those who have women's clubs and men's and girls and boys clubs at a youth level, how it's different, how you're working, and the issues that you're facing.
Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, like you mentioned, obviously there are sort of nuances and intentionalities around having women's teams versus men's teams that are foundationally important to be thinking about. To understand what those pieces are, whether that's everything from nutrition to loading to physical therapy to you know, the educational pieces, the youth development. You know, women and girls are going through very similar, but at the same time very different experiences than their male counterparts. So understanding how we can educate those who work in and around our game on those nuances is so key, because we're seeing young girls dropping out of sports at a higher rate than young boys. And, you know, a lot of that is for many different reasons, but the people who are in and around their game are not supporting them clearly in the way that they need to be supported. So for us, obviously, as having the kind of elite first team environment, obviously that's our only club. Our whole environment is created around women athletes and what it is that they need. A lot of it is the same. A lot of it is, you know, the pieces of, for us, it's their pay and their housing and their transportation and all of those things that any human is going to be need to have taken care of them, so that they can focus really intently on what's happening on the pitch. But the other things for us are things like are ensuring that the data partnerships that we have with different sports science pieces are ones who can understand their cycle tracking and how that's impacting their loading, and where we need to be changing what they're doing on the pitch and how we're working with them on their nutrition and things like that. There's a plethora of things, but just that intentionality and that focus is so key.
Yeah, and we're obviously a men's club without a women's team, but we do have girls' competitive teams in our programs, and we do have a young girl playing in our academy on the boys team. So for us, there's also a heavy emphasis within our organization on safeguarding generally for any minors or vulnerable adults who are part of our organization. And so from the girls' competitive team's perspective, it's actually ensuring our coaches have been trained in how to coach young girls, because there's differences, there's changes that they'll go through body-wise, body image issues that come up, and things that coaches just need to be thinking about how they speak to these young girls versus how they would speak to young male players, and understanding, how to motivate them, and conversations around diet or nutrition are different, for them. And for the young woman who's playing in our academy, there are safeguarding issues and concerns if that team is traveling. She can't have, obviously have a roommate who's a male player. So ensuring that she has, a parent or an adult who's with her, a guardian who's with her on those travels. When they have locker rooms, making sure that she's got her own personal space. But at the same time, including her in the conversation, because she doesn't want to be treated any differently than any of the other players on her team. She's a member of the team. And she's a pretty damn good member of that team. And so, her comfort level is the most important. So ensuring she's part of those conversations and understands that it's really about her safety and well-being, why certain things have to happen, but also making sure she still feels, a member of that team. It's important.
And let's bring this up. We talk about the difference between young girls and young boys. And thankfully, society and the world has understood the benefits and how we need to change how we coach and train young girls. It's also the same for young boys. Rub a little dirt on it, toughen up. Boys are going to be faster to make a joke about someone's size or gender or something, to poke fun at someone. That's the way boys interact with each other. And I think we're seeing now that can be just as painful. Gerd, some of the things that you went through, illustrate that. And that's a case everywhere. When we talk about no discrimination, we need to talk about everyone and deal with all these issues. And I think some of the young boys clubs also need to have a lesson in, this is what we're doing in 2024, it's not 1974. Would you agree?
Agree, and I think that one of the most important things about having these conversations is to share lived experiences. So a few weeks ago, our U15 and U17s were participating in a tournament, and we had gotten an email that, had been some not so nice language on the pitch. And I was like, this is 2024, I don't understand. These are young boys. They're playing, this game that they love. Fast forward 2 days later, I woke up on a Saturday morning to an email that there had been another incident. And the coach that was with the team and the head of our academy said, we're pulling the team out of the tournament. And we got on a call and we were talking about what happened, and to hear the head of the academy share with us, because obviously we weren't there, but share what the boys said and how the young man who was the recipient of the racism, it was heartbreaking. It was heartbreaking, and I'm like, this is a child. I don't understand how this is happening. And we put out a statement on the club's behalf, and the boys quickly came home. But they have feelings. So you know what? Just because they're males and they're little boys and they're young boys, they have feelings the same way that the females that are playing this sport have feelings, and it affects them. It really affects them. And what I can say is that I'm so incredibly proud of the head of the academy that was able to take a stance, and he felt comfortable coming to the leadership team and saying, this is the decision, and we took a stand. And we have seen change happen instantly after having conversations with MLS. But at the end of the day, it's no matter what age you are, you're playing the sport, you're a human being first. And those, the boys are probably tougher than the girls that are playing, but they have feelings too. And you know what? Words matter. Language matters. And when you're on the pitch, it should be about playing the sport and focusing on that. And the color of your skin should not matter.
Brianna, I'm going to put words in your mouth now. I see you nodding. As someone who, and God bless you for this, who has spent so much of your adult career fighting for human rights and human decency, when you hear people taking a stand like that, that's got to be banging the drum. For the people out there, give us some ideas of, because people might not know what to do, right? What do you do? Oh, okay, the game's over, just forget about it, move on. Give some tips and ideas for people who are facing this. It could be a U13 club, it can be a pro club. What are some things they can do to combat an incident of a human rights violation, in the simplest terms, that has an impact?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's right. It's important to remember that soccer players are humans too, and right, you know, in this country and globally, we are facing a youth mental health crisis. There are all of these challenges that exist throughout the U.S. and they don't stop at the soccer pitch. And so I think that, you know, these opportunities that we have to infuse community programming, supports, mental health supports, you know, just to treat players holistically, you know, is great as human beings. We also know that it helps them in their performance as athletes, and especially for high school students, it can help them stay in the game. Where, you know, especially young women and body dysmorphia and all of the challenges that they face when they get to those more competitive levels, it can be really, really difficult for them. So I think, you know, one, I think there's a great opportunity when you can connect with your professional clubs that have those resources available, but also there are community partners everywhere who can help you navigate this, who can help provide language and work through, you know, the identities of the folks that, you know, you have on your team. But it's also just being aware of it and being willing to call it out, because that's incredible, right? Because there have been many times historically where coaches might have said, like, suck it up, that's just how it is. And it's such an important shift to say, no, that's not okay, and we're willing to put the athletes as humans above all else.
Well, and you took a stand.
Yeah.
And more importantly, like, by you taking a stand, you put that out on blast to everybody to know that this was not acceptable. If you hadn't done that, to your point, it was just put your heads down, get back in and play the game. No one would have known that that happened, but because you did that and because that conversation then started with MLS, things changed. So I'm proud of you guys too.
Thank you.
Gerd, how important is it for you to hear that that's going on?
That is very important, and it rings so many bells, and it gives me memories of examples that we received. So one example, for example, was that there were constant issues within a team, because often, especially in Europe, you have so many kids, but you don't find enough coaches, and the coaches sometimes completely overwhelmed because everything kind of is condensedly happening in this team, right? And the coach suddenly has to deal with it. And it's an amateur coach, he has the kids 2 times a week or something. And when things kept on happening, the club took the approach that the kids, together with the coach, but mainly the kids, developed a behavior manifesto where they write down all the things they don't like and where they also don't like their colleagues to do the same thing. So they created their own kind of behavior manifesto. The coach signed it, everybody had to sign it, and they also had a certain scheme of punishing or not themselves, like it was symbolic. It was a point system. And then during the next match, when that happened, or a few matches later, it went better. But then they realized what the parents sometimes are screaming when they are watching their girls and boys play. And you saw the captain of the team running outside and saying, you will also sign this now next week, because we don't want to hear this, because we don't want to hear you saying this to us. And that was very impressive and a good way of self-empowerment, right? Because the kids agreed on the things that they don't like themselves.
So FIFA can set the policy and the initiative and the mission from 10,000 feet. To take it down from the ascending from a professional club to a college club to a training club to a youth club. You can't be there for everyone, but you are there. We saw on the screen all the beautiful initiatives you have. For the people out there who are watching, who are at a club level or a training level, who have an issue that they don't understand and can't solve it, how can they reach out to you? What's the best way to interact with FIFA, or where are the best places to go for them to get more help when they're trying to find, like you said, I understand it, coaches get overwhelmed and they're thinking, where can I turn? You guys are a place to turn. How do they do that the best way possible?
Anybody can reach out to us, and more do than people sometimes think. But then, for example, when it's a local club, we would like to go and involve our national member association, right? Because it's outside our realm, so we don't want to do anything that is already in place, or maybe things are headed somewhere else. So we would first hear people out, and then we probably would consult with the member association, then maybe we have a conversation together if necessary. So the first way to reach out with us without even reaching out with us is checking the FIFA Good Practice Guide on diversity and anti-discrimination. There already you find a lot of examples on how to build and strengthen your structure, and a lot of examples from all around the world. And they might not always fit, but you get an idea of what you want to do and what you don't want to do. And you probably get reconfirmed on what you're already doing.
All right, I want to go to a pretty serious matter that we've talked about before. Look, in some of the issues that we face with anti-LGBT or non-discrimination or racism, sometimes, unfortunately, that's come within the soccer community itself and the sporting community. There's a horrible, what happened with USA Gymnastics was here, what's happened internally in some of the Women's League, and the Women's World Cup final. I mean, what a beautiful match, and people are talking about something else that happened. Talk about the idea of sort of policing yourselves, and how do we step up? How do we do that to ensure that everybody involved in the game is doing the right thing? I know this is a sensitive topic. Anybody who wants to jump in, please do.
Yeah, I mean, I think, having joined Gotham in the past year, seeing what the NWSL and the NWSL Players Association is doing to work collectively together to create all of these pieces that are doing exactly that, policing internally, safeguarding our players, creating that infrastructure. You look at, clubs now have player safety officers. That's part of my role, is sitting as a player safety officer in the environment every day as a resource to our athletes. We have our, first historic collective bargaining agreement between the NWSL and the players that has, a plethora of these operational pieces for that safeguarding and for those standards that really our athletes need and want. Seeing all of those things get put into place to work together to create that internal guide has been something that, I've been really proud to see, and it's been, for me, really impactful to see how our athletes have so bravely stepped up and used their voices to force that change and to really, demand that change.
I think that's an outstanding point, and I'm going to give the league credit. It's easy to have a policy. It's another thing to actually make people feel like we're allowed to speak up. I mean, that's the biggest hurdle, right? How do you guys implement that to make sure people know no matter what's going on here, we want to know about it because we're on your side? That's got to be the first step to everything, yes?
Yes, absolutely. And I think it comes down to awareness. It's understanding the awareness in the environment that you're operating in, and then the behaviors that, are acceptable and not acceptable. And I, from where I'm sitting, I've been with the New York Red Bulls for the last 8 months, and I can say that, no matter anyone feels uncomfortable about anything, the policy is you speak up, because we are a people first, player first driven organization, and the second something feels off, you have to raise your hand. You have to say something, because that is the only way that we're going to be able to, number one, address it and course correct it quickly, because safety is a top priority.
Yeah, it's the same for us too, and I think it's that communication and that education and awareness of, yes, these are our policies, these are the behaviors that are acceptable, that are not acceptable. And here are the consequences of, of not following those policies. But at the same time, people have to know and feel comfortable coming to you. So from a staff perspective, we have our DEI council, similar to what you described with FIFA, where they serve as a conduit between the staff and us at the executive leadership team. If they don't feel comfortable coming to me or coming to someone else, they can go to their peers, and they can talk about things that make them feel uncomfortable, or they've got ideas they can share, and it serves as a conduit, and it has been working over the last 4 years for us. They also feel comfortable now going to HR. We did a lot of work over the last 4 years in strengthening our HR function so that people saw them as not just the policy and process function, but the people function, and that they could come to them. And we've had so many people come, and sometimes it's very simple, and sometimes it's a question, and sometimes it's something more, serious. But they know that they're going to be heard. They know that they're going to be listened to, and they know that there's going to be immediate action. And that's the other part of it that's important, because you have to follow through as an organization on what you're telling people you're going to do. And so when they see that, it's tangible. Then everyone else starts to feel comfortable, like, I can go talk about this, and I can go say something, and they're going to do something about it. Not bury it, not ignore it, but there will be action that is taken. And we've had numerous instances of things that have happened that we have had to action forward on, and we've listened to our people when they've come to us. Your point about, player-led strategies is also important too. I think in MLS, the Black Players for Change have been crucial in voicing their concerns to the league and through the Players Association to say these are things that are not acceptable, that we are not going to allow anymore. So from a player perspective, like their safety, their well-being, they have that voice, and the league has given them that opportunity to come to the table and talk about things. And they've also been part of the solution, and I think what's also so amazing when you talk to players is that they take the position that it is about education, it is about awareness, it's not just about punitive action. And so restorative justice is something that is important to them. We've had instances in the league where there have been, racial slurs and things used in matches and games, and we've all had, players come through the program, and they are given second chances because the Black Players for Change has taken that position, that we don't want this to simply be punitive, but we want people to understand why those words you use are hurtful, why that's not something you should do, why that is not respectful of people. Because the league is full of players from various ethnic and cultural backgrounds, and what passes in one culture as acceptable may not pass in another. And so sometimes it is actually about bringing people to the table to understand those things. Again, I've said before, like, we're all human. People are going to make mistakes. Repetitive, things have consequences, but I think from a player perspective, having them lead the charge and use their voices has been critical in our league.
Let me bring this up, and this is a societal thing. Are we seeing a post-pandemic, we had the pandemic, everything stopped, everything shut down, whether it was 3 months, 6 months, 12 months, and I think on the other side, a lot of people said, I'm not doing now what I did then. It was a reset for a lot of people. And I think in the sporting world, it was a reset for athletes to say, I'm not putting up with that anymore. I'm going to speak up with this. Just like employees are saying, I'm not going to the office 5 days a week, right? I mean, there's been some positives out of the pandemic, and I think the biggest thing was a reset of what we will expect and what we allow. Is that something you guys, I think, see?
Yeah, I mean, I think for us, it's maybe less of a post-pandemic sort of recognition of that, and there's work that, specifically our Black and brown players and staff and athletes that have been doing long before the pandemic, but having that opportunity to have that time and have that space to come together and strategize and think through things and have opportunities to understand this moment may be a reset, and how can we really utilize this moment as we're coming back in from a complete pause, right? We've taken a step back from everything. How can we make it different than it was before with this opportunity to have somewhat of a clean slate to really drive forward work that they have been doing long before?
All right, I feel like I've been like a Dougie Downer here. Let's talk about the pandemic, let's talk about racism, let's talk about sexism. So I'm going to try to elevate the conversation here. And Brianna, I'm going to go to you. The beauty of why we're here, the opportunity, the excitement is not just we're bringing the World Cup here. It's not that we're bringing world-class games. It's not that we're just bringing the final to New Jersey, not New York. It's actually coming to New Jersey. There's opportunities here. Now, New Jersey is a melting pot of diversity, as we know. This is going to be a melting pot on steroids. You're going to have people from all of the teams coming, and people, as Gerd pointed out, from countries that aren't even represented. So you're going to have an opportunity here with the host committee to have all of these people here where we can address some of these issues, talk a little bit more about things that potentially you could do to make people get basic human rights.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so exciting to have these conversations 26 months out. because a key part of this is education and awareness building. And so just having these conversations, and you know, it's funny when I tell people I do human rights around the World Cup, I get a lot of like, huh? Like, right? And it's explaining to folks, right? It's about protecting vulnerable populations. It's about protecting LGBTQ folks. It's about protecting immigrants. It's about ensuring access and inclusion for a diversity of folks with physical and mental differing abilities. It's about ensuring that there's labor protections, that we're protecting against human trafficking, sexual and domestic violence, all of these things that we know there are increased risks around with having an event as large as the World Cup here, and especially with the finals. So I think, you know, what we're really excited about is this opportunity over this next 26 months to really elevate the conversation and to bring attention to a lot of these different populations and different needs, and really bringing our community partners together and saying, come to us, come join us in the conversation. And, you know, we really view ourselves as the host committee as acting as a connector and a catalyst for all of the great work that already exists in New York and New Jersey. You know, we have not been shy about saying we believe that we are leaders in these spaces in the US, in North America, globally. But we know that there's more work to be done. And so we're excited to leverage that opportunity. And then I think on the other end of it, you know, what we're really aware of is, as was pointed out, you need to have action and accountability when things do go wrong. So we are under no illusion that we will be able to prevent 100% of bad things from happening. And so, you know, we're really looking forward to working with our government partners, our community partners, and ensuring that there is what we call access to remedy. So if something does go wrong for you, that you know how to get help, that you have people who are responsive to you and your identity and your needs, and can help you get through that. And then anyone, you know, a bad actor who's done anything, that they have accountability and justice.
I don't want to pretend like all games are going to be in New York and New Jersey. They're not, but just the important ones. But Gerd, from where you sit and where you stand, to see, we made a lot in New Jersey about how the progressive policies of the governor, who did so much to bring it here, Governor Phil Murphy, the way that we interact as a society in New York and New Jersey, which might be different than other places around the world, some better, some worse, and there are pockets of the U.S. that we're not necessarily proud of either, but that's a whole other conversation. For what you do to have the big game, the big event in this area with mayors and governors who believe in human rights, who believe in basic women's rights, that's got to make what you do so much easier and give you an even bigger platform, because people are going to let you stand up and scream and shout, right?
It's a lot of open doors, but it's also a very positive challenge that I like, right? Because we have a big set of experience from different countries, but we also don't want to come to somewhere and say, look, this is what you need to do. So we have a certain set. You saw some of the standard measures that explicitly are speaking for my work. But then at the moment, it's also very important that we uplift what you just said, right? Figuring out what are the needs in the special communities where the matches will be played, and try to find the right balance, right? So we have the human rights, FIFA human rights policy on one side, and we have this strategy commitment that we saw during the bidding process, and now it's about balancing this and finding the right measures. And here, of course, it's easy. It's easier on one side. On the other side, of course, we are coming from a Women's World Cup that was basically in one big city. So everything was centralized. You needed to speak to one person or a little group of persons, and then everything would fall in the right direction, hopefully. But here, of course, you have to do a lot of discussions in different areas, in different countries, and that's sometimes it takes sometimes a little bit more time, but I'm sure we will get there, because the basics are more than basics.
For the clubs,
much more.
The World Cup comes to the United States. That brings exponentially more eyeballs on your sport, on your team. How do you guys take advantage of that new audience, not just to build fans, not just for season ticket holders, but to get out the word that you want to get out about what you believe in and what you're about?
It's a great question. No, I mean, I think, for us, obviously, it's about participating as fully as we can and working with, the opportunity that, to your point, that this World Cup and the final and these big events being here brings such a diverse group of people across the world of football to our backyard. It's an opportunity that we can't help but take advantage of, to be sitting in those rooms and having those conversations and working really collaboratively with other clubs in the area, because a rising tide lifts all boats, and this is good for all of us. And how can we continue the partnerships and the work that we're doing together, to your point, to really capitalize on this holistically, not just from new fans, new season ticket holders, although that's great as well, but sort of globally in the ecosystem as a whole.
Well, and I think how do we ensure that, the kids in our programs are getting to experience this World Cup? Because as someone said,
that would be the ticket thing. Well,
the vast majority of people aren't going to ever get to go to a game, right? But this World Cup coming is so inspirational, as you said, for so many young kids. How do we ensure, because we all have them in our ecosystem, how do we ensure that they get to feel that, right? That excitement, and they get to share in it? And whether it's watch parties or festivals or some other, format, how do we ensure that they're a part of that story and it's touching as many kids in our communities, as we can? I think, fans are great. We always want more fans, and we always want people to know that MLS and NWSL are here and that they're growing, and it's great football, and tune in and watch us. But we want our kids to really live through this and experience it in a way so that when that 5 or 6 or 7-year-old boy or girl who experiences the World Cup in some way grows up with a love of the game. I think what we're all doing is trying to grow a love of this game, so that whether you become a professional or you just play in adult leagues when you get older, or you just are a consumer and a watcher, or you raise your own kids to be soccer fans, the game has grown very differently in the US than it has in the rest of the world. And in many other parts of the world, it's in your DNA. And that's what we're aiming to do, is create a generation of kids who soccer's in their DNA. And they just grow up with a love of it,
And a tip of the hat to the FIFA folks out there: exponentially more games this time around. More teams, more games. That's going to build the excitement. That's going to build the energy. More cities than you could have imagined. So I think that will help. Elise, I'll give you one more shot at that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think collaboration amongst, the local clubs, sitting here with my colleagues, but I also think just the visibility of what the World Cup is going to bring to this market and globally, and it's going to continue to solidify that this is a sport that is going to continue to grow, and it's not going anywhere. So I think it's really, really important that this event is going to cement that for, this sport in the U.S.
And I just want to add on to that, one of the massive legacy outcomes from 1994 was the U.S. Soccer Foundation. And here in New York, New Jersey, we've partnered with them, committed to building 26 mini pitches across New York and New Jersey between now and 26. And those efforts are, they partner with community programs. They bring in education and support for youth and adults that are all built in underserved communities. That is a real tangible legacy, right? 30 years later, that we're still seeing. They're still growing the game through that. They're still engaging youth and adults and really bringing together community. And so it's really exciting to think what is going to be the U.S. Soccer Foundation version of 2026. And 30 years later, where are we going to look back and say, this is what we're still seeing, the impacts of from the seeds that we're sowing now?
There's definitely not a better place to be than New York, New Jersey, and not a better sport to be in than soccer than right now. I mean, this is the moment. I think this is what's so exciting for us.
All right, we're respectful of people's time, respectful of people's times around the world. We have time for questions. I got a boatload here that have been coming in from the live stream. If anyone in the audience here wants to jump in with one, we'll be happy to take it. If not, I'll go to the live stream. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, I'm Dr. Gerd Debowski. I work with New Jersey as a cultural competency educator for the statewide diversity leadership officer for Department of Mental Health and Addiction Service. I know 988 is an important, resource for us here in New Jersey, and I'm assuming that it's not necessarily an international resource, but we're concerned with things like you mentioned in the human trafficking area and domestic violence area. What else can our agencies do throughout the state of New Jersey? There's about 300 of them that DMOS represents, that we can work with you and the host agency to make sure that we're keeping that presence for all of you that will be here, but also making it a safe environment so everybody has an enjoyable time when they are here in this area. What other things can we do for the mental health piece of it and those other areas for women and domestic violence?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a great question. So we are working closely with the governor's office and will be expanding and working closely with state agencies. I think what we're really aware of is that we want to utilize the existing state systems, but we also want to ensure that they're not overtaxed, right? Because we are focusing on supporting New Jerseyans and New Yorkers, residents who are already here throughout the tournament, but also the influx of visitors that will come. So there will be things like FIFA will have a tournament-wide fan app that will have resources on there that folks can access. We will certainly continue to work with the state of New Jersey and New York City, and we're starting now. It feels like, this conversation has been going for a long time, but really the match schedule announcement just 2 months ago is really what solidified what we're working towards here. So we're now really starting these conversations and digging into, we're really hoping in the next few months and year to really start figuring out what are the systems that we need to build, what is our existing capacity, where do we need to bring in community partners to state agencies. We're also working really closely with, the FIFA World Cup 26 folks to say, okay, what are the tournament-wide and country-wide level supports that we need to have so that if something goes wrong in one city, you don't have to stop and think, okay, I'm in New Jersey, this is what I do, versus, okay, I'm in Kansas City, this is what I do instead. So a lot of nuance, a lot of challenging things, but I think the first thing is we're here to have conversations, and we want to hear, what you all think are the strengths of the system, what are the weaknesses of the system, and how can we sort of bring folks together to build up that capacity for 26.
You brought up earlier, and this is one of the questions we got online, the challenges of not in one city. We're not even in one country now. So you have 3 countries, each of which have a different cultural history and cultural ideas. For what you do and your team does, the idea of the messaging and the outreach to bring it in Mexico, bring it in Canada, bring it in the different regions of the U.S., challenge, opportunity, it's a lot of things. Talk a little bit about that.
Well, it starts with the branding that FIFA has developed and will continue to develop. Like, how do you present the tournament? And of course, having it in so many different areas, and then even if you look only in the New Jersey area, we have more than 200, we probably have 200 different nationalities of people with a different background. It means that it is a showcase also for us to say this will be the most diverse World Cup, not only because people are coming from everywhere, but they are already there. And kind of finding a way to merge these interactions through different projects will be the nitty-gritty stages that we will get into now, hopefully very soon. But this is always the greatest thing. This is always the greatest thing at a World Cup. Like in Qatar, I have seen fans from so many countries I've never seen at a FIFA World Cup, because the World Cup was in a region where people from countries around could come, and you see flags of countries that you have never have seen, and people are coming from Bangladesh showing a Bangladeshi flag, and because they're just happy to be there, and it's not like their team is not even playing, and this creates a lot of opportunities, and you have so much. I mean, I'm just here for 6 days. I haven't been here for 16 years. But the food, and even you can find the authenticity of the food, right? I mean, people are into this, and many people are coming here to combine football with the experience. I'm just mentioning food. It's an easy one.
We got Burger King and Wendy's and McDonald's, a variety.
No. I mean, not only.
You look like an Arby's guy, I'm just saying.
I take you for dinner tonight to show you. No, there's much more. I mean, there's much more that people can get, and even also reconnect. Because if you have ethnic minorities that are here for, 3 generations, you will meet people that are in the country you're coming from, and you can readjust. And it's, of course, social media does that as well, but it's a different thing when 2 people meet. And this is going to happen, even in a big city.
we
Well,
will
and
create
hats
these
off to
places.
FIFA in the various, with the pod system that they're going to use, the teams will stay in certain areas. So teams in New York are going to be in Philly, New York, and Boston. So hopefully they'll all stay in New Jersey. We got great places here and great food. So you're going to get the interaction with the clubs and the fans, not just on game day, but before and after and all the cool things we have to do it. And that goes for all of the regions in this. Another question from the audience if we have one.
Just more of a comment than a question. I'm John Trayer, and one of the hats that I wear is being the chair of the New Jersey Commission on Civil Rights. Our law against discrimination is the first in the country. We're very proud of it, but I think we could really be, the Division of Civil Rights could really be an educational device for the World Cup. And I encourage you to look into that, because we have a lot of very good professionals in our division that can really, help in a lot of the issues that we're going to be facing.
Yeah, big fan of the Division on Civil Rights, and big fan of NJ Ladd. Yeah, so look, this is part of the argument that we made for why it's worth it to come here, because we already have such strong existing systems that really we don't have to build anything new. What we told the FIFA when we first presented to them on the human rights report that we wrote in 2020 is we do this every day. This is not new to us. And so all we have to do is really build up the capacity and the awareness and education around the World Cup and around 2026. But we have an incredible foundation here, and it's through things like the New Jersey Law of Discrimination, which is, like you said, the first, but also still today one of the strongest in the country, that we know that we can leverage. So we don't have to start from scratch.
So talking about infrastructure, another comment that I got from online, just want to bring it up. We've got the Club World Cup coming in 25, the Men's World Cup coming in 26. There's a Women's World Cup. I think we got the stadiums. I think we can handle it. So if anyone's thinking, the U.S. will be happy to handle it again. Love to have the women's game and everything to do it. I'll take one more question from the audience. Yes, sir.
Hi, Prakash Rajgopalan, former KPMG. So thank you for a great discussion. I think as I appreciate the no discrimination, the spectrum of things that you spoke about, I also recognize the challenges that lie ahead. I actually have two questions, but I'm going to boil it just down to one. So at this time, I'm thinking about, for example, New Jersey. We have about 800,000 people who are below the poverty line. It's about 9.2% of the population. So as we speak about inclusivity, how do we ensure that the access to the stadiums, the tickets, and everything else is available to people who are not able to afford their day-to-day living as well? I know the state of New Jersey has several systems in place, like the SNAP system, the New Jersey Family Care, that works with people who are disadvantaged that way. So when a big event like FIFA 2026 comes to New Jersey, how do we ensure fairness in access? Any one of you can take this question.
Tickets. Who's got tickets? Need two.
Yes.
Need two.
So it's certainly not Gerd that controls this, but FIFA does control the ticketing system and prices and everything. What we're really focused on in New York, New Jersey, like we said, is ensuring that you don't have to have tickets to a game. I get that that's very exciting and the pinnacle of participation, but that you don't have to have tickets to a game to feel like you're participating in the World Cup, right? We will have fan festivals that, right, the World Cup is 40 days long. This will be sustained engagement. There will be opportunities throughout to feel like this is still here. And there's 114 games? 104, thank you, games. New York, New Jersey has 8 of them, right? So there will be opportunities to watch other games, virtually, and there will just be, what we're really focused on is creating an atmosphere of engagement and participation so that if you can't get tickets to a game, you still feel like you didn't miss out.
Speaking of missing out, Gerd, I'm telling you, online you're a popular guy. A lot of people are wondering, they love the initiative, they love the FIFA's behind it, they want to find out how you or people from your team can go to different places, do presentations like that, bring it to different continents around the world. What would be your advice to the people out there on how we can get this message out to a global audience even better?
I think we will have this on YouTube, hopefully, so that's another thing to spread the issue, to spread the topic. But yeah, of course, I mean, we and my colleagues, I mean, it's not only me, right? It could be another person having like an in-depth dive into the whole accessibility topic that I just touched upon, and many topics I didn't touch upon. We have a safeguarding and child protection department that could do similar things and touch an angle that I didn't even speak about today. So I think, yeah, I mean, we are available, especially in years where there are not so many risk World Cups. And last year, I couldn't do that much because I was working constantly at tournaments, FIFA tournaments, because there was a high risk of things to happen in the wrong way. But yeah, how can we spread it? I think we started quite nicely with the campaign in 2022, the No Discrimination campaign, because my point was communications, I'm helping you, but I want more than just a tagline. And we started to produce educational videos. We have one, for example, that is about how to be an ally. Another one is about how to talk to your kids about racism. Another one is about how to challenge your own bias. And we are trying to build on that, to create these little snippets, and maybe also in exchange with the host cities to know what are the issues we need to address when we are going to this country, like we did in Australia and New Zealand. You remember the example. We want to find out what are the topics, right? And then use our campaigns to reach out to people. And today with social media, that's possible than ever more. But also during the event, and that kind of links to your question about tickets, we often have a pool of tickets for people, and bear my English, I'm not a native speaker, so with a vulnerable, underrepresented, socially underrepresented background that we try to push for. And wherever that's not possible, we often intensify, or on top of that, reach out to communities and include them in some youth program and bring them to the stadium. So these are things that are happening, right? And these are things that are dear to us, and we are trying to make that possible. It's not easy, but as you said, if that doesn't work out for everyone, because a stadium is sometimes more limited than that table to keep people at, we bring them in elsewhere through certain fan activations that we will have definitely, or community pitches we had in the past where people could even represent themselves actively on the pitch and not just watching the game. And all of this needs to be then broadcasted into the world. Not only the match in the stadium, but also what we do around. And our communications team and yours probably will be more busy than ever to catch all the initiatives. And some people even use the World Cup without using the brand to create an initiative. Sometimes there is suddenly a theater piece in a theater that
FIFA's real cool about
is about
using
soccer,
the World Cup
right?
They're all good with that.
There's a theater piece about soccer, and if it doesn't violate the brand, right? I mean, it's great if people are using that event to leverage certain things that they are doing as well. So there is a lot how we can use to put our focus on and stream it out to the world.
All right, for whatever reason that I'm sure a lot of people are regretting at this point, they gave me the microphone, so that means I get the final word. So we're going to close it up, and I'm going to use a popular phrase that I think all of us can take away. If you get one takeaway, it's this. We always talk about you have to see it to be it. We do that a lot. You have to see it to be it. You have to see women world-class soccer players on TV to understand that they can do it, to be in those jobs. But here's another way you have to see it to be it. Instead of looking out and seeing it, let people look in and see it. You decide what you stand for. You decide individually that I'm not going to put up with what that person said or what this organization did. And it's not a fight, as we talked about, it's a discussion. So let other people see what you stand for and what you'll stand for. I got those words right. Is a key that all of us can take. No matter what country you're on, no matter what sport, it doesn't matter if you're on the field, it doesn't matter if you're in the office, it doesn't matter if you're in the subway. If we all model positive behavior, and I don't think anybody here is like pro-discrimination, I might be wrong, but I think we're all good on this. but we need to take the next step and model it. And if we do that, if each of us can do it one time for one person, we'll all be a little bit better off. So with that, I want to thank this unbelievable all-star panel. Give them a big round of applause. I want to thank William Paterson and this wonderful facility for hosting us. I want to thank Gus and the Pride Chamber for doing all of the legwork and logistics. My gosh, they were unbelievable. And most of all, I want to thank not just Gerd, but I want to thank FIFA in general for taking this issue on. You've been doing it for years. It's very important in society. Tip of the hat to you guys. We love watching the games, but this is, in the scheme of things, 30 years from now, this is going to be far more important than who wins or loses. And with that, I'll send it back to a studio that doesn't actually exist.